Hi, my name is Steve Wolpert. I'm a partner at Whitten and Lublin Employment Lawyers. I'm here today with one of the founding partners of the firm, David Whitten, and we are here to talk to you today about marijuana and cannabis in the workplace.
So Steve, is the world going to pot? Has things changed significantly since we allowed medicinal use of marijuana in the workplace a while back?
So I would say no, there hasn't been a major change. For those who are entitled to use medical or medicinal marijuana, they're going to continue to be allowed to do so. And for people who are now allowed to use it recreationally, the workplace environment isn't likely to change very much. Still going to be limited by policies and other things that make it hard to smoke in the workplace.
Is it any different than booze in the workplace?
I would say it's actually quite similar. Like a lot of companies who are preparing policies are looking at any alcohol use policies as a model for what they're doing with marijuana. So obviously there is some flexibility now because marijuana has been legalized. So I guess that forces us to ask some questions like, can a manager invite coworkers over lunch or after work to smoke up together? Can a salesperson go and smoke up with a client? These are the kinds of things that I think we're wondering about, and maybe you have a thought or two on that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of employers are going to be adapting their alcohol use policies in the workplace. If they don't have them, they should probably get them now and address marijuana and alcohol. But as to whether an employee is any more able to just go get high over the lunch break with a client or a colleague, it's really no different than alcohol there, in the sense that if your employer has a policy against it, you could be disciplined for doing it. And let's not forget that marijuana impairment is a criminal offense if you're operating a vehicle under the influence. So to the extent you're driving back and forth to lunch or that meeting with a colleague, you're going to have some trouble if you've been smoking and you're pulled over.
So that would have a particular application for salespeople who have to drive to and from clients.
Yeah, so I think your parallel you've drawn with alcohol is a strong one. So do we have any questions? I see that we do. Somebody's asking, to what extent does this impact somebody that smokes recreationally over the weekends or after work?
Yeah, so in theory, you should be more free to smoke up over the weekends than you were before, because now it's legal to do so. But that doesn't necessarily translate when it comes to the workplace, because employers don't want you to be impaired while you're there. So while you're allowed to, of course, smoke up on the weekends, and in theory you can smoke up 5 minutes before you start work, in practice that's not, it's not so simple, because you've got to be sure that you're not impaired in the workplace.
Is it any different than having a shot right before work?
It's different in that it's harder to test for. So for example, one of the things we've talked about in the past is when it comes to alcohol use, if a company is going to test, there are ready-made tests that can help them to figure out if an employee is impaired. Whereas when it comes to marijuana, the test for impairment isn't really there. They can test whether the marijuana is in your system, but not necessarily whether you're impaired, unable to work.
Well, yeah, because that's my understanding, is that it can take days for THC to metabolize in your system, and so it might still show up on a drug test even though you're not impaired.
That's right.
What about drug tests in a workplace? How common is it?
Right now in Canada, it is very uncommon, and there are a lot of limits that our courts have actually imposed on drug testing in the workplace, largely because it's seen as a violation of a person's privacy rights. So it's only in limited circumstances that a company can drug test, like immediately after an accident, or if it appears obvious essentially that you're impaired in the workplace.
Or if they're operating heavy equipment, there's a safety concern.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
All right. Well, it doesn't seem like it's going to change that much based on what you've said. If anybody out there requires legal advice on this issue or any other employment issue, you know where to find us. Our contact information's on the website. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.